but I think conflict is at the heart of all great works of art. Whether it is conflict with the self, or with others, or with ideological notions, art has always been the site of furious debate. Yet when it comes to our creative and cultural institutions, conflict is tearing us apart. I think that's because we've lost the ability to disagree. We're living in a time of polarities where disagreeing with someone takes on a visceral and permanent quality, forcing us into preset categories of ally or enemy. Our disputes can be brutal, sucking us all into a vortex of division. 3 years ago, I decided to trade in my role as a CEO to work with counterparts across the cultural sector to try to build more equitable models of cultural production. I knew that conflict would be inevitable as we're trying to do things like disrupt systems and devolve power. I didn't realise how consuming and destructive that conflict could become. Disagreement seems often to result in conflict, and conflict in withdrawal and separation. Again and again, the same patterns would appear, localising conflict at the side of the interpersonal, then blaming individuals for being the wrong cultural fit. Square pegs, round holes, I was told. Is it worth reflecting on why our organisations are so full of holes? I remember being asked to consult on a conflict that had erupted inside a cultural organisation. Disruptive, combative, unrealistic. It's just some of the words used to describe the individual at the centre of this so-called conflict. It didn't take much probing to figure out that disagreements were not part of their established ways of working. Challenging the status quo, or I call it disagreeing, was simply not accepted as part of a building of a so-called harmonious organisation. I started to ask myself, could we disagree better? If engaging with diverse viewpoints and worldviews is essential for equity, inclusion and justice, then learning to disagree is going to be an essential skill for all leaders. How could we turn disagreements into opportunities for understanding, enlightenment, and transformation? With these questions in mind, I set out to create new engagements with leaders willing to have these challenging conversations. What resulted was a series of ideas about how we can turn bad conflict into good by focusing on our capacity to disagree better. Here are 5 things that I learned through this process. Number 1, trade politeness for truth-telling. Consider whether your desire for civility is masking your reluctance to hear uncomfortable truths. There is no path to justice that does not involve challenging conversations. Politeness is the servant of power, and truth its great disruptor. Number 2, get comfortable with discomfort. Discomfort is the methodology of change. If you're not feeling it, you're not doing it. You might need to deal with that annoying voice in your head telling you to turn away from these uncomfortable feelings, but consider this. Humans learn best at the precipice of danger. So why not lean into discomfort to unlock new possibilities? Number 3, I confess this was the hardest one for me. Think deeply about offence. Sure, some things will cross the line, and for that we have increasingly robust laws and policies and frameworks. But some disagreements could warrant another look. What could we learn if we tried listening with humility to different perspectives rather than jumping straight to offence? What if offence was the start and not the end of the conversation? Number 4, consider how and when to invoke safety in disputes. Are you unsafe, or are you just deeply uncomfortable? We do need to get better at understanding safety in our organisations, particularly the cultural and psychological safety of those without claim to power or privilege. But think about this for a moment. Too many casual invocations of unsafety can also obscure the oppression of those with least power to complain. Last one, number 5. Stop sending mixed messages. We say we covet diversity, but we prioritise consensus above all. We are the masters of consent, but act to stifle dissent when we disagree with what we're being told. Maybe we could disagree better if we figure out what we stand for and start being true to those beliefs. It's a lot to expect of a sector under pressure, I know. But if cultural organisations, who are the imagination powerhouse of our society, can't hold space for dissent, what hope for the rest? British-American writer Jhumpa Lahiri tells us that the power of art is the power to wake us up, to strike us to our depths and change us. Why would we surrender such power when we could be using it for the collective good? Learning to disagree better unlocks all that potential. Maybe we can begin with a small intention practiced with repetition. When we disagree, let's seek to build culture, not break it. Yes, speech can be violence, but it's also the most powerful tool we have for healing and repair. Let's use it wisely.